Forget everything you know about stone and mortar. This is the throne of an empire.
It took 10 years, 100,000 captives, and enough gold to buy a kingdom to build the impossible.
Beneath this sand lies a machine of death, a labyrinth of gears and shadows designed to entertain the gods.
Built where a tyrant once played, the Flavian amphitheater became the beating, brutal heart of the greatest civilization on Earth.
Precision met madness in the Valley of Rome, creating a monument so grand it would outlive the very empire that birthed it.
Rome was a city in shadows, scarred by Nero's madness and the fires of a dying dynasty.
The old world had fallen, leaving behind a people hungry for order and a leader they could trust.
Vespasian rose from the ranks of the legion, a soldier emperor determined to heal a broken empire.
He knew that to rule the Romans, he must first give them back their dignity and their city.
Nero's golden house was a symbol of theft, a private paradise built on the stolen land of the people. At its heart lay a vast lake, a monument to one man's vanity in the center of a crowded capital.
With a single decree, the emperor ordered the lake drained, returning the land to the Roman citizens. It was a masterstroke of politics, transforming a tyrant's garden into the world's greatest public stage.
The promise of the Flavian amphitheater spread through the streets, a gift of blood and glory to the masses.
For the plebeians, this was a new era, a promise that the empire's wealth would finally serve them.
The design was a mathematical marvel. 2 theaters joined to create a perfect, massive ellipse of stone. A shape never seen before on this scale, designed to funnel thousands into a vortex of spectacle.
Only the finest military engineers, veterans of 100 campaigns, could master such a structural challenge.
Every inch was calculated to support a weight that would rival the mountains of the gods.
The Flavian line, father and sons, stood united, their legacy bound to the rising walls of the arena.
The wealth of a conquered kingdom fueled the project. Silver from the temples of the East.
The spoils of the Jewish war provided the gold needed to turn vision into indestructible reality.
A labor force of 100,000 was brought to Rome, the engine of the empire's ambition. Their lives were the cost of this monument, their strength the foundation of every rising arch.
From the furthest provinces, the most skilled artisans were summoned to carve the face of the new Rome. 20 miles away, the earth was stripped bare to provide the white bones for the Flavian giant. Day and night, a river of stone flowed toward the city, on roads reinforced for the burden.
First, they conquered the water, draining the lake through a miracle of underground hydraulic engineering.
They used a secret weapon, a liquid stone that grew harder with time, a revolution in construction.
A ring of solid concrete was poured 40 feet deep, anchored into the very bedrock of Rome. The skeleton began to rise, a rhythmic sequence of arches designed to stand for 1,000 years.
No mortar would hold these stones, only iron clamps and the perfect balance of Roman geometry.
As the walls grew, the memory of the tyrant Nero was buried under the weight of the new arena. Under the flickering torchlight, the heart of Rome beat to the sound of hammers and stone. The stage was set. The Flavian amphitheater had begun its long, bloody watch over the empire. The fall of Jerusalem provided the treasury, a king's ransom to build a people's playground.
Every ounce of gold was a brick in the foundation, turning the spoils of war into Roman glory.
100,000 souls were brought to the city, the forced architects of their own conqueror's monument.
Their labor was the empire's greatest asset, a relentless force moving mountains by hand. Skilled freemen and artists were recruited to give the brutal stone a soul of Roman elegance. At Tivoli, the earth was carved open, yielding the travertine stone that would define the Colosseum's face.
Precision was the first law. Every block was pre-cut to fit its exact place in the giant puzzle.
A river of white stone began its slow, thundering journey toward the heart of the capital.
The roads groaned under the burden of 30,000 tons of limestone, a logistical feat of war.
They fought the mud of the old lake, replacing swamp with a foundation of indestructible rock.
Beneath the surface, they built a labyrinth of drains to keep the arena dry from underground springs.
The water was mastered, forced into the Cloaca Maxima to surrender the ground to the Flavians.
They perfected the secret of Roman concrete, a liquid stone that would outlast empires and oceans.
This was the revolution, a material that allowed for arches more daring than any ever built.
A city of timber rose to support the city of stone, a masterpiece of ancient carpentry.
Using the power of the human stride, they hoisted massive stones to heights that defied the gods.
Gravity was the enemy, but Roman pulleys and gears turned weight into a soaring vertical triumph. 300 tons of iron were forged to bind the stones together in a grip of steel.
No mortar was needed. The stones were locked in a geometric embrace that no earthquake could break. The work never ceased. The emperor's deadline was a command that echoed through every hammer blow.
The arch was the DNA of the structure, distributing weight with a grace that masked its brutal strength.
Engineering wisdom dictated the load, heavy stone for the feet, lighter rock for the rising crown.
Every millimeter was a battle for perfection, ensuring the massive ellipse remained true to the design.
Under the moonlight, the Colosseum grew like a living creature, fed by gold and human sweat. Every brick was a signature of power, a permanent mark of the dynasty that rebuilt Rome.
Efficiency was key. The arena was designed to be filled and emptied with military precision.
As the wooden supports fell, the concrete stood firm, a man-made mountain of unprecedented scale. The complex machant of corridors began to take shape, a masterpiece of social engineering in stone.
For the many, it was a mountain of toil. For the few, it was a monument to eternal power.
The preparation was over. The bones of the giant were set. Now, the spectacle was ready to begin.
The foundation was a ring of power, an elliptical trench carved deep into the heart of the city.
12 meters of solid concrete were poured, creating a bedrock that could support a mountain of stone.
Leveling the earth was the first victory. Without a perfect base, the giant would surely crumble.
They laid the first stones, massive blocks of limestone that would anchor the arena for 2,000 years.
Every pillar began here, rooted in the earth, with a precision that defied the primitive tools of the age. The skeleton began to emerge, a grid of stone pillars designed to carry the weight of 80,000 souls.
Geometry was their language. A fraction of an inch could mean the difference between glory and collapse.
The arch was a miracle of physics, turning the crushing weight of stone into a soaring architectural triumph.
80 entrances, 80 arches, a rhythmic symmetry that defined the genius of the Flavian design.
The keystone was the lock. Once in place, the arch became indestructible, a bridge across time.
They filled the gaps with a core of concrete and tuff, creating walls that were both light and incredibly strong.
The corridors were born, vaulted ceilings of concrete designed to funnel the masses with military efficiency.
Neither rain nor storm could halt the work. The Emperor's deadline was a force of nature itself.
The vomitoria were taking shape, passageways so efficient they could empty the arena in minutes.
They bound the stones with fire and iron, a marriage of elements that no earthquake could sever.
As the first level was finished, the second tier rose, a vertical expansion of Rome's architectural ambition.
Layers of arches stacked upon layers, a structural web that distributed the burden of history.
To go higher, they had to go lighter. The materials changed as the arena reached for the clouds.
Every strike was a calculated move in a game where the stakes were the immortality of an empire. Strength on the outside, resilience on the inside. A hybrid structure built to endure the ages.
Man and machine worked as one, a mechanical symphony that turned muscle into monumental height.
The Colosseum was becoming a titan, a shadow of power falling over the heart of the capital.
The interior was a maze of sloping concrete rakes, designed to hold the weight of a nation's cheers.
Luxury met engineering. The seats of the elite were the first to be carved from the finest stone.
They refined the rough edges of war, dressing the brutal stone in the elegance of imperial marble.
It was a mountain of stone, a man-made peak that dominated every view of the Roman horizon.
When the wood was stripped away, the stone held, a moment of truth for the engineers of Rome.
The geometry was flawless. The light of Rome had found a new home within the Flavian arches.
The foundation was deep. The structure was set. The amphitheater was no longer a dream, but a reality.
The ground floor stood on the strength of the Doric order, the Stoic foundation of Roman power.
Every column was a soldier of stone, bearing the weight of thousands with silent, unyielding strength. On the second level, elegance emerged. The Ionic scrolls mirrored the rising sophistication of the empire.
Art met industry as the structure climbed higher, dressing the brutal stone in Hellenistic grace.
The third tier reached for the heavens, crowned with the intricate leaves of the Corinthian order.
A vertical history of architecture, layered in stone to represent the hierarchy of the Roman world.
The corridors were veins of stone, designed to pump 80,000 souls into their seats in minutes.
At the base, luxury was paramount. The elite sat closest to the action on cold, white marble.
The angle of the cavea was a calculated slope, ensuring every man had a perfect view of the kill.
Beneath the seats lay a labyrinth of stairs, a matrunt designed to keep the classes strictly apart.
Each arch had a number, a ticket to the greatest show on earth, carved forever into the travertine.
They pushed the limits of concrete, creating soaring ceilings that felt as light as the Roman air. The Flavian seal was everywhere, a permanent signature on the rising mountain of brick and stone.
The attic wall closed the circle, a massive limestone crown to shield the spectators from the world.
The elite sailors of the Misenum fleet were summoned for a task only masters of the sea could handle.
240 masts were fitted into the crown, the bones of a giant sunshade.
The Velarium, a masterpiece of sailcloth, designed to keep the Roman sun from the emperor's brow.
High above the city, the navy worked the ropes, controlling the shadow like they controlled the seas. Safety was a wall of marble and iron, separating the civilized from the beasts below. Every arch became a gallery, filled with the gods and heroes who had made Rome eternal. The architecture of drama, moving from the shadows into the blinding light of imperial glory. It stood 50 meters high, a man-made cliff that silenced the memory of Nero's golden palace. The gray stone was hidden behind vibrant pigments, a world of color for the citizens of the empire. At the very top, the poor and the women watched, a dizzying height far from the marble below. The circle was closed. The giant was whole, a limestone crown for the mistress of the world.
As the sun dipped, the Colosseum cast a shadow that reached the very edges of the Roman Forum.
Titus walked the halls of his family's legacy, a monument built on the gold of a fallen temple.
The gates were ready. The structure was sound. The arena waited for its first drop of blood. A beacon of Roman engineering, glowing in the heart of the night, a promise of the spectacles to come.
The tiers were finished. The stage was set. Rome was ready to be entertained.
Beneath the sand lay the Hypogeum, a two-story labyrinth of stone and shadow.
This was the heart of the machine, a hidden engine room for the Empire's greatest spectacles.
After a decade of blood and stone, the Flavian amphitheater stood finished, a new sun in the Roman sky. The skeleton was clothed in marble and art, a masterpiece that redefined the limits of human ambition. Emperor Vespasian did not live to see it, but his son Titus opened the gates to a legacy that would never die.
Inscribed in stone, the Flavian name was bound to the heart of Rome for all eternity.
A sky of silk covered the masses, a final luxury to shield the citizens from the Mediterranean fire.
The stage was set, the sand hungry for the spectacles that would define an era of Roman power.
100 days of games began, a festival of glory and death to celebrate the birth of a giant. 80,000 voices rose as one, a roar that shook the very foundations of the Palatine Hill.
From the depths of the earth, the wild was summoned to face the iron will of the Empire. They turned the dust into an ocean, proving that Rome's mastery knew no boundaries of land or sea.
It was more than a theater. It was a political engine, fueled by bread and the blood of the circus. A beacon of light in the ancient world, a stone heart beating for the glory of the Caesars.
For the architects, it was a triumph of geometry over chaos, a victory for the logic of the arch.
Architecture that told the story of existence, victory for the brave, and silence for the fallen. Every evening, the building itself became a sundial, marking the passage of an empire's golden age.
The cost of the spectacle was measured in lives, a brutal price for a city's peace and entertainment.
When the cheering stopped, the stone remained, a silent witness to the peak of Roman civilization.
It became the center of the world, a monument that made every other city seem small and fragile.
The empire would fall, the emperors would fade, but the stone of Titus would refuse to crumble.
It survived fires, earthquakes, and the greed of popes, standing tall as a ghost of a lost world.
To touch these walls is to touch the pulse of a history that refuses to be forgotten.
A survivor of 2,000 years, an icon of human resilience against the relentless march of time.
The heart of the machine is now open to the world.
We still look to these arches for wisdom, learning from the masters who built without computers or steel.
It remains the blueprint for every stadium on Earth, the ancestor of every modern arena we build today.
Life returns to the place of death, a quiet beauty reclaiming the brutal glory of the past.
A bridge between the ancient and the modern, a luxury of history that we are privileged to witness.
It stands as a reminder that greatness is not just built, it is engineered to endure forever. Every visitor becomes a part of its story, a witness to the eternal power of the Flavian dream.
Colosseum, the greatest stage ever built, a monument of blood, gold, and the immortal spirit of Rome.
28 elevators were engineered to bring terror from the depths to the surface.
Using a system of counterweights, the Romans mastered the art of vertical movement.
At the pull of a lever, the very earth seemed to open, a miracle of ancient stagecraft.
The Hypogeum was a zoo of shadows, holding the world's most dangerous predators.
For the fighters below, the light from above was the last thing they might ever see.
No beast was too large. The Roman engineers designed paths for the giants of Africa.
In the early days, they mastered the water again, flooding the floor for naval battles.
A Naumachia, a sea battle on land, proving the Flavians controlled both earth and sea.
The floor was a massive wooden deck, designed to be easily replaced after the blood hit the sand.
They called it Harena, the sand that would drink the blood of 10,000 men.
Above, the sailors adjusted the giant canopy, a sky of cloth to cool the roaring crowd.
The velarium could lower the temperature by 10 degrees, a luxury of shade in the Roman heat.
Precision was vital. 60 lions could be released simultaneously to paralyze the audience with awe.
A world of life and death, hidden just inches beneath the feet of the spectators.
Thousands worked in the dark, so that the thousands above could cheer in the light.
Security was absolute. The barrier between the wild and the civilized was made of Roman iron. The ascent to glory, or death, began in the cold, damp silence of the Hypogeum.
The machinery of death was ready, a masterpiece of luxury industrial engineering. Even through feet of wood and sand, the hunger of Rome could be felt in the stones.
They recreated the world inside the walls, from North African jungles to the forests of Gaul.
A web of iron and silk protected the elite from the reach of the dying beasts. For the emperor, a path of luxury that bypasses the chaos of the common man.
Every entrance had a purpose. Some led to glory, others to the eternal silence. The gods were summoned to watch, as the Flavian giant prepared to open its mouth.
The construction of the machine was complete. The stage was set for the ultimate drama.
It was more than a building. It was an artificial world, a monument to Roman supremacy. The work of 10 years was finished. The era of the Flavian Games had arrived.